Good morning, and welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. This week's headlines: Why does the Strait of Hormuz matter to global trade? Congo and Rwanda to sign peace deal. Thailand's PM under pressure to resign. Spain's defense spending deal exemption. Indonesia skips G7 to attend Russian Economic Forum. Niger to nationalise uranium. DRC extends cobalt ban. First robotic heart transplant without chest incision. Starting with politics, Thailand's Prime Minister is under pressure to resign. It follows PM Shinawatra appearing to criticize the military in a leaked phone call she had with Cambodia's former leader over an escalating border dispute, which resulted in the death of a Cambodian soldier last month. Rwandan opposition leader Ingabire arrested. The prominent opposition leader faces charges of inciting public disorder and creating a criminal organization, a move her lawyers said was politically motivated. Ingabire, who heads unregistered opposition party Dalfa Umurinzi, returned from exile to contest a presidential election in 2010, but was barred from standing after being accused of genocide denial. Spain's defense spending deal exemption. Spain has struck a deal with the NATO military alliance that would allow the country to avoid spending 5% of its GDP on defense spending. West Africa wants US deal, but entry bans a barrier. Nigeria's foreign minister said West African nations want to strike deals with the US over energy and rare earth minerals, but the US administration's looming expansion of travel bans risks derailing those efforts. Indonesia skips G7 to attend Russian Economic Forum. The decision by President Prabowo came after reports earlier this year that Moscow was lobbying Jakarta to house long-range bombers in Indonesia's Papua province, causing anxiety in Australian foreign policy and defense circles. Indonesia and Russia's respective sovereign wealth funds signed an agreement worth €2 billion. Turning to conflict news, Iran warned US ahead of Qatar strike. The US was warned by Iran in advance of its retaliatory strike on its military base in Qatar. Pre-warning of the Iranian strike, which was in retaliation to the US bombing of key Iranian nuclear sites, was seen as a diplomatic signal that Iran did not want further conflict escalation. President Trump followed with tweets of a planned ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Succession plan for Ayatollah. A three-man committee from Iran's top clerical body, appointed by Ayatollah Khamenei himself 2 years ago to identify his replacement, has accelerated its planning since Israel attacked Iran and threatened to assassinate the veteran leader. Outspoken Nicaraguan opposition figure killed. A retired Nicaraguan military officer turned outspoken critic of President Daniel Ortega was shot to death at his home in Costa Rica. Roberto Samcam, 67, had been living in exile since July 2018 when paramilitaries attacked his home in Nicaragua. Suicide bombing on Syrian church kills at least 22. The suicide bomber entered and opened fire before detonating his explosive vest. Syria's Interior Ministry said in a statement the suicide bomber was a member of Islamic State. It is the first suicide bombing in Damascus since Bashar al-Assad was toppled by an Islamist-led rebel insurgency in December. Syria's Christian community has shrunk from about 1 million before the war to under 300,000 due to displacement and emigration. Congo and Rwanda to sign peace deal. Congo and Rwanda will sign a peace agreement in Washington, a joint press release from the nations and the U.S. State Department said. Both countries have agreed to ending fighting in eastern Congo. It includes provisions on respect for territorial integrity and a prohibition of hostilities, disengagement, disarmament, and conditional integration of non-state armed groups. The agreement also includes a commitment to respect territorial integrity and the conditional integration of non-state armed groups. Moving to economics, why does the Strait of Hormuz matter to global trade? About 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption passes through the strait. Should Iran restrict access, it would particularly impact China, with the world's second-largest economy buying almost 90% of Iran's oil exports, with India the second-largest buyer of Iranian oil. Europe takes a big step toward banning Russian oil and gas. The European Commission, the bloc's executive arm, put forward a legislative proposal to gradually ban purchases of Russian natural gas. Under the plan, no new import contracts will be allowed from next year, while imports under existing short-term contracts for most EU member states will have to stop in a year's time, and purchases under long-term contracts will be outlawed by the end of 2027. Texas instruments to invest $60 billion to make semiconductors in US. The plan is for 7 semiconductor fabrication plants, resulting in more than 60,000 jobs. TI says it's working with the US administration to help locally produce the critical chips that power everything from smartphones to data centers and cars. Niger to nationalise uranium, DRC extends cobalt ban. Niger accused French company Orano, which operates the Sumer uranium venture, of taking a disproportionate share of the uranium produced, as military authorities in the West African country tighten their grip on foreign companies and civil society. And the Democratic Republic of Congo has extended its current 4-month ban on cobalt exports for a further 3 months in a bid to curb an oversupply of the key material for electric vehicle batteries. Brazil concerns over cheap Chinese EV imports. China's top electric vehicle, EV, producer, BYD, is rapidly expanding into Brazil, shipping tens of thousands of affordable EVs into a market still in the early stages of embracing green vehicles. Brazilian auto industry officials worry that the influx of cars from BYD and other Chinese automakers will set back domestic auto production and hurt jobs. In development news, US passes crypto regulations. The Senate passed legislation that would regulate a form of cryptocurrency known as stablecoins, the first of what the industry hopes will be a wave of bills to bolster its legitimacy and reassure consumers. The Genius Act would establish guardrails for stablecoins, a type of cryptocurrency typically pegged to the US dollar. There is a provision in the bill that bans members of Congress and their families from profiting off stablecoins. But it does not extend to President Trump and his family. Shrinking cloud cover is driving record temperatures. The world's cloud cover has been reducing significantly and may help explain the heat of the last 2 years, new research led by NASA found. It found areas over the ocean where storm clouds often form have dwindled by between 1.5 and 3% per decade. World's largest camera. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory is starting operations in Chile and will survey the southern night sky in detail every few days for 10 years. Astronomers are hoping to use the observatory to learn more about dark matter, the nature of the universe, and closer objects like asteroids and solar system features. After a decade under construction, which cost $810 million. Sierra Leone's bio takes over as ECOWAS chair amid instability. West African leaders gathered in Nigeria's capital for a summit dominated by warnings of deepening insecurity and political instability, as Sierra Leone's president, Bio, took over the rotating leadership of the Economic Community of West African States. Law to allow multiple citizenship for Ukrainians. Ukraine's parliament has passed a law allowing dual or multiple citizenships in an effort to address the country's demographic challenges worsened by the ongoing war with Russia and to strengthen connections with its estimated 25 million-strong diaspora. Finally, our social news. First robotic heart transplant without chest incision. Surgeons transplanted a human heart using only robotic tools, no chest opening or bone cutting. Instead of opening the chest, US surgeons used a surgical robot to make small incisions and navigate through the preperitoneal space to remove the diseased heart and implant the donor organ without cutting through the breastbone. Early humans survived extremes before global migration. Humans are the only animal that lives in virtually every possible environment, from rainforests to deserts to tundra. Ancient Homo sapiens developed the flexibility to survive by finding food and other resources in a wide variety of difficult habitats before they dispersed from Africa about 50,000 years ago. AI sniffs earwax to detect Parkinson's. Scientists in China have developed a promising early screening method that detects Parkinson's from subtle changes in the scent of earwax. By analyzing specific volatile compounds in earwax and feeding that data into an AI-powered olfactory system, they achieved 94% accuracy in identifying who had the disease. Rights groups, India illegally deporting Muslim citizens. There are fears the crackdown against outsiders is driving widespread persecution as expelled Indians are returned by Bangladesh border guards. Marijuana users have higher rate of heart attacks. Using marijuana doubles the risk of dying from heart disease, according to a new analysis of pooled medical data involving 200 million people, mostly between the ages of 19 and 59. Cannabis users also had a 29% higher risk for heart attacks and a 20% higher risk for stroke. That's your Future Trends update for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with more stories reshaping our world.